DeAndre Swift, Parker Washington among fantasy football's Arbitrage All-Stars. We shouldn't like or dislike players in fantasy football, but rather prices. Tiering players is a way to maximize draft resources because you ideally get one of the last players drafted in a tier, and can be resolved that he's really not much different than the top or middle of that tier. This is arbitrage getting an equivalent asset cheaper because of an irrational difference in perceived value. Advertisement here are my Arbitrage All-Stars thus far this draft season.
Love watermelon but hate the sticky cutting mess? This compact 2-in-1 tool slices neat cubes and flips into a retractable fork for easy serving at parties, picnics, or home. Want to get the best verified deal and see full details? Visit grabdeal.us/3 right now.
I feel the urge to caution you that the prices I cite here will move dramatically because the values are so obvious, but they won't. Prices are pretty much locked in right now. The positional rankings below are derived from ADP of all 2026 NFFC drafts, with the exception of Deebo Samuel. His ADP is from August NFFC drafts, aligning with when he signed with San Francisco. If my ranking isn't listed, it matches the player's ADP. Quarterback Dak Prescott, ADP. QB9, my ranking. QB5 arbitrage. Joe Burrow, QB2, my QB4. I don't like citing overall ADP since formats dictate where players are drafted, but NFFC has Prescott at no. I honestly don't see a difference here at all. Both are likely to have high passing volume, even if their awful defenses improve to being less awful. Both have a pair of Pro Bowl, franchise-level wide receivers. If anything, Prescott runs a little more and is marginally more likely to get a rushing touchdown. Both quarterbacks are super stackable with their wide receivers, but you probably need to draft in the top half of your draft to get the Bengals WRs before drafting Burrow, and near the end of your draft to get the Cowboys WRs before picking Prescott. Again, stacking is a strategy in deeper leagues or in leagues with larger starting lineups and thus more scoring. Interestingly, Prescott has been significantly better than Burrow the past 3 seasons measured by yards per pass attempt, 7.5 to 7.1, and expected points added, EPA, per dropback, 0.13 to 0.08, according to True Media. In fantasy scoring, it's basically a coin flip the past 3 years at 18.7 ppg for Burrow to 18.4 for Prescott. But Prescott now has George Pickens to go with CeeDee Lamb. Last year, it was 18.5 for Prescott to 16.8 for Burrow. Running back Ramondre Stevenson, ADP. RB30, my ranking. RB21, arbitrage. Amarian Hampton, RB7, I'm not saying I don't like the higher drafted player. I'm saying that the person who gets Stevenson at his market price is better off than the Hampton drafter who the paid market price. Behind Stevenson is an explosive backup, Tre'Veyon Henderson, who could steal touches. But behind Hampton is Keaton Mitchell. Yes, I'm also saying Mitchell is the arbitrage Henderson. While I have Hampton several spots ahead of Stevenson, I'm waiting until the bottom of that RB2 group and drafting WRs for as long as I can, since I play in formats that start more than 3 WRs. Hampton was 15th in rushing yards over expected per carry out of 48 qualifiers. He was 16th in yards after contact per attempt. He was also among the best receiving backs in the league measured by yards per target, 9.3. I can't grade the Chargers' offense overall as being better than the Patriots. Advertisement DeAndre Swift, ADP. RB24, my ranking. RB18 arbitrage. Chase Brown, RB8, my RB11 again. How is the respective environment much different? Both the Bears and Bengals can be top 5 scoring offenses and should be top 10. Swift is a year older, but both backs are in their primes. Brown ranked 26th in rushing yards over expected, YOE per carry, 19th in yards after contact per carry. Swift ranked 20th in YOE per attempt and 22nd in YAC per attempt, basically the same as Brown. Even though Swift was a more efficient receiver, yards per target, you can make the case that Brown will be more involved in the passing game. But can we really expect another 5 receiving touchdowns? No, I can't view that as predictive at all. Wide receivers T. Higgins, ADP. WR17, my ranking. WR11 arbitrage. George Pickens, WR9, my WR8. This is pretty much the other side of the Burrow-Prescott coin. I know Pickens is more exciting than Higgins, but since 2023, in 25 games with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase healthy, Higgins averaged 14.9 PPR PPG last season that equated to WR11. Last year, in the 14 games where Pickens and CeeDee Lamb were both on the field, Pickens averaged 12.6 points per game, according to True Media. I have Pickens higher, but they're in the same tier. Parker Washington, ADP. WR31, my ranking. WR29 arbitrage. Ladd McConkey, WR18, my WR30. This is more about McConkey for me. He needs high volume but was 32nd in targets per game. To beat lower volume, he needs efficiency. But even his old-school yards target rate was terrible at 7.4 Vs. The 8 NFL average for WRs. I know we're blaming the offensive line, but McConkey was outproduced by Quentin Johnston, who everyone seems to hate. As for Washington, in the final 8 games of 2025, once he cemented a regular role after Travis Hunter was hurt, Washington was WR16 at 14.6 PPR PPG. He has great BMI, as important as height, even though he's just 5'10". He averaged a broken tackle every 11 receptions, 10th among WRs. Deebo Samuel, ADP. WR57, my ranking. WR35 arbitrage. DJ Moore, WR7, my WR21. Samuel is 1 year older than Moore, and I'm well above market on the latter. I would love to have them both at their prices, but Samuel back with the Niners puts him in the same tier for me as Moore. If I think a guy has between a 33–40% chance of outscoring a much higher-ranked player, they basically go into the same tier. With Washington, Samuel was 49th in EPA per target, just behind Rashee Rice. His average separation was 9th best. Again, this stat does not seem to correlate to WR performance as much as we'd like. Luther Burden, Marvin Mims, Chimer Dike, John Mechie, and Khalil Shakir were top 5. Samuel's yards after catch over expected was 11th best, so his running ability seems intact. Samuel seems very likely to at least replicate his 2025 performance in his new, yet familiar, surroundings. And last year he was WR33 in PPR fantasy points per game, FPPG. So WR35 is conservative by me, and WR57 is a ridiculously low price for Samuel, though I encourage you to get as close as possible to that price in your drafts. Remember, I used only August ADP for Samuel 19 NFFC drafts. I'm not breaking down more because, again, I like Moore and I like his price. Tight end Kyle Pitts, ADP, TE6, my ranking, TE3 arbitrage, Brock Bowers, TE1, Trey McBride, TE2. By the way, why is Bowers, number 20 overall, going so far ahead of McBride? No. Those two are the same player in very similar bad offensive situations. But here I'm advocating for ignoring the top-tier TEs and approximating their expected value with Pitts. This is no slander against Bowers and McBride, but I'd much rather have Pitts at cost. 1 in TE routes run the final 5 games of 2025. He went from 10th among TEs in PPR FPPG in the first half of 2025 to number 2 during the final 5 weeks at an incredible 18.9 FPPG, including 1 3TD, 45.6-point performance. On third down, Pitts' 154 total routes run ranked 2nd. Pitts is the last TE I will draft proactively in the top 6 rounds. New head coach Kevin Stefanski used Harold Fannin, who was a rookie, at a very high clip as last season wore on. I expect Pitts to pick up where he left off. This recommendation assumes Tua Tagovailoa wins the QB job, which I think is likely. If Michael Penix wins, I don't like Pitts as much, but I still like him.